Yeah. I'd like to call this meeting in order. If we'd all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Jessen.
Here.
Councilmember Wetton.
I'm here.
Councilmember Conover. Present. Councilmember Graham. Here. Councilmember Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Bozick.
Here.
And Councilmember Rivas.
I'm here.
7 present.
And can we move into first reading, please?
Okay. Notice to taxpayers of proposed additional appropriations. Notice is hereby given the taxpayers of Porter County, Indiana, that the proper legal officers of Porter County will meet in the Porter County Government Administration Building at 155 Indiana Avenue, Valparaiso, on May 16th, 2017, at 5:30 p.m. to consider the following additional appropriations in excess of the county budgets for the year 2017 and to transact any further business which might come before the council. General Fund, Sheriff, Account 1230, Sheriff Pension, $580,000. Juvenile Probation, 1110 Salaries, a reduction of $6,539. Superior Court 2, 3991 Other Services, $10,000. Cumulative Bridge, 3950, Contractual Services, $300,000. Major Moves, 3850, Contractual Services, $317,197. Reassessment Fund, 1110, Salaries, $4,500, 1210 FICA, $345, 1220 Medical Life Insurance, $8,690, 1230 PERF, $1,960. County User Fee, $2,505, 2505 1110 Salaries, $3,584, 1140 Merit Pay, $625, 1210 FICA, $275. Hospital Proceeds, $3950, Contractual Services, $517,000. Inmate Processing Fund, $4420, Motor Vehicles, $50,000, $4540, Other Equipment, $7,503.54. Adult Community Corrections Fund, 1110 Salaries, $38,200, 1210 FICA, $2,923, 1220 Medical Life Insurance, $17,380, 1230 PERF, $4,279, 2110 Office Supplies, $1,200, $3950, Contractual, $194,715. Taxpayers appearing at such meetings shall have a right to be heard thereon. The additional appropriations, as finally made, will be referred to the Indiana Department of Local Government Finance. The DLGF will make a written determination as to the sufficiency of funds to support the appropriations made within 15 days of receipt of a certified copy of the action taken. Vicki Urbanek, Auditor of Porter County, published May 5th, 2017 in the Chesterton Tribune.
Thank you, Madam Auditor. I'd first of all like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. We appreciate your attendance on this beautiful night outside, albeit a little warm, although none of us will complain about that, for sure. But I do appreciate you showing up. My sense is that the majority of the folks represented in this room are here showing support for the Caring Place, which I also appreciate and respect your attendance and support of that organization. And to give you a little bit of context in terms of how I'd like to address that item, obviously, most of you know it's not specifically on the agenda, but we would like to spend a little bit of time discussing or perhaps adding a little bit of context to the information that's out there currently, and that's been reported, and I think in perhaps a oversimplified way in terms of the request from the Caring Place and the idea of that request being presented to the council. So if you'd indulge me, I'd like to talk a little bit about, and I've stated that I feel the request specifically is premature, and I'd like to touch on that a little bit from the county council's perspective. And then I also feel strongly that the request is difficult for us at this point because we don't specifically have a funding mechanism in place that could honor such a request. And I'd like to ask Councilman Witten to address that aspect of our approach or concern toward the request. But then, most importantly, I think I'd like to have Mary Beth Schultz, representing the Caring Place, make a presentation to us about what their needs are, We all, as a council, appreciate and are very thankful for the work that the Caring Place does. We recognize that it's an important part of the community and a much-needed service throughout Porter County. And we all very much are in support of the organization. And what I'd like to do is have Mary Beth present your need, not just yet, but present to us and the council what your feelings are and where you're at, specifically related to the need in the capital campaign. So I want to, again, add a little bit of context to the discussion about the request and why I feel, or we feel as a council, that it would be premature for us to entertain or to grant this type of request at this particular time. And I say that because a couple of things that people need to realize, and it's a little bit of how county government works 101, really. And that basically means that we have 3 commissioners, as many of you know, and their role is to set the vision for the county, determine what projects need to be done, what roads need to be fixed, what bridges need to be repaired, and their role is to manage the county operations. They're the ones that set the vision for what the county does. They do that in collaboration with the county council. That's an important piece of it, to be sure, because as they include the county council in that planning or in that vision, creating that vision, obviously when you have 10 people working on that vision, it provides for a better plan most oftentimes, and it also is important for them to work with the council collaboratively, because ultimately the commissioners have to come to us for the funding. That's where the county council's role is. We're the funding mechanism for the county operations. And I say that because at this particular time, it wouldn't be prudent for us as a council to individually address a $1.6 million request. And I say that because as we are here today, the commissioners are working on a comprehensive plan to determine what needs there are throughout the county. And you can bet, as the Caring Place has needs, the county has needs as well. And we have building needs that need to be met. We have buildings that have been neglected. We have repairs that need to be made. We have bridges that need to be fixed. And we have E91 radios to purchase and towers to build. We have an issue with the North County building that needs to be remodeled or expanded or replaced. We have a juvenile detention center that has needs. We have jail that continuously has needs where there's money to be expended. The courthouse needs work. Obviously, the front entrance of this particular building needs some work. And we have just a plethora of needs throughout the county that need to be addressed. The commissioners are in the process of developing a comprehensive plan to identify what those needs are, and they're also going to prioritize what they'd like to see have happen, and they're going to present it to the council to come to us, of course, for the funding of it. And so part of my message in terms of how honoring such a request or entertaining a request at this point, why it would be premature, is because we don't know specifically at this point what the county-specific needs are. So it would be difficult for us to go outside of the county business and make a contribution of that size. So we need to make sure that we work with the commissioners. They stated in the commissioners' meeting today that they felt a request of this nature would be premature. They would not be prepared to entertain discussion on it. And I think, and I believe the council feels the same way, and we need to work together in that effort. The second component of how this request could be viewed as premature is if it's not the council's specific responsibility, and if the council, along with the commissioners, are not prepared to tackle a request of this magnitude, then the question would come up: how about the foundation? And all of you, or many of you, should know that a foundation was created based on the hospital proceeds back in 2007 when we sold the hospital. Legislation changed which allowed us to create a foundation, which allowed us to gained some significant interest, and I think Councilman Witten will elaborate on that in terms of how the interest we're earning now is much more significant than what we were in the past. That's a great success story and a wonderful thing that's going to provide significant opportunities for all the people of Porter County into the future. But I can also tell you that from a foundation standpoint, the legislation changed to allow for the foundation back in 2015. The foundation was created, our foundation was created in 2016, and we started our new investment strategy in March of 2016, and had wonderful success through the end of last year. However, in terms of talking about a potential grant process or an opportunity to go through and vet different organizations that might have specific needs, we haven't, we're nowhere near ready for that, for tackling that particular project. Now, we have, I've selected and appointed a steering committee for the foundation to start putting some of that structure in place. And that committee is myself as chairman, Dan Witten as vice chairman, and then also Jeff Larson representing the county council, and then Jeff Good representing the commissions make up that steering committee. The work and the charge of that group is to dig into what the rules and what the processes and what the procedures should be ultimately for the Porter County Foundation. So that is something that we look forward to. We've literally had our steering committee meeting on May the 9th. So it's, I met with a philanthropic nonprofit organization that does consulting work that's going to help us put together some of the parameters that will put us in a better position to address these types of claims. Part of that foundation that we have, part of it could ultimately go to infrastructure, could go to economic development, could go to health initiatives, could go to nonprofit and charitable organizations. But there's much work to be done to establish those guidelines. So we're not at all prepared to go through the foundation to talk about a request such as this. It would be in doubt, without a doubt, it'd be very, very premature. I want everyone to understand that from the council's perspective, our primary goal, our sole function, and what we're charged or challenged to do as a council is to make sure that we are good stewards of the taxpayer dollars. That's all the taxpayers. And that's not always an easy thing to do because there's so many needs throughout the county, there's so many needs throughout the community, and it's oftentimes difficult to make hard decisions to say we can do this or we can't do that. But that's what our job is, and that's what we need. That's what we need to do. A couple of examples, and I mentioned one because it was specifically it has been discussed in the past. But a couple of examples of how we look at a financial consideration. It wasn't that long ago that the Memorial Opera House, and that is a county venue, county-owned facility, something that we work with. They, not too long ago, came to the council and asked us for an additional $50,000. And they were having financial difficulties. They were struggling, having a tough time making ends meet, and I think along the way there's some mismanagement maybe or some things that could have been handled differently. And they wanted or needed $50,000, otherwise they were concerned that the Memorial Opera House would have to close, wouldn't be able to survive. We went through, and as a council, we investigated, scrutinized their budget, we looked at their revenue, we looked at their expenditures, we looked at their plan going forward to determine what are they going to do to make sure that they don't come back to us in the near future asking for additional money. And we also at that time told them specifically not to come back for an additional request, and at that particular time there was a feeling on the council that if the Memorial Opera House couldn't operate more effectively, we asked ourselves whether or not we should even be in the business of the Memorial Opera House. Fortunately, after much scrutiny and deliberation, we honored the request for the $50,000. They're doing very well. It's being managed very well, and it's been a wonderful success, which we're all thankful for and all definitely benefit from. Another specific example, and I mention these just to tell you the type of scrutiny that we go through when we make decisions on how we're going to spend taxpayer dollars. The second one, and it's a little bit more current because it's been discussed pretty openly, is the animal shelter. To give you a little bit of historical information on the animal shelter, that was something that was done out of the hospital proceeds. It was done with a 10-0 vote, meaning unanimous, all 7 council members, the 3 commissioners all agreed to put $2.5 million into the animal shelter. And that was all predicated that if the council would give $2.5 million, we were fortunate enough to have an anonymous donor who also donated $1 million to it. So if we would give the 2.5, she would give the 1 million, and so we ended up with what will be a $3.5 million animal shelter. Everyone can also remember how deplorable those conditions were at the old animal shelter. It had been discussed for years where or if a new animal shelter was going to be built. What we ultimately did after going through this process, we ultimately built the animal shelter on property that the county already owned. We, of course, graciously accepted the $1 million contribution that the community citizen was willing to offer, and then we put our $2.5 million, into the project. And so, as a result of that, and that may sound like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, for the animal shelter, which is a statutory requirement for the council, by the way, it's something we are statutorily required to take care of as animal control. So we're required to take care of it. The asset is ours going forward, and we have a facility, or will next month have a facility open that we put $2.5 million into it, which is essentially going to be a $3.5 million asset. And I mention that again just to point out that when we talk about expending money, and when we talk about being stewards of the taxpayer dollars, we take that very seriously. We work very hard to make sure that we're doing the right thing, and that's not to take away at all from the Caring Place. Caring Place is wonderful. I think everyone here, without a doubt, is supportive of the Caring Place, the work that they do. But at this particular time, it was clear to us that it was far too premature to honor such a request, and we also didn't feel comfortable, and we realized that there wasn't a funding mechanism in place to honor that request. And what I'd like to do, Councilman Whitten, if you'd share a little bit of information about the funding aspect.
Yeah, I'm going to say a couple things. I was going to address 2 financial things with the council, and that was, 1, sort of address the solvency of the county, and 2, address the investments through the foundation. So I've been asked questions over the last, and by the way, before I go there, I just have to touch on one thing. I agree with a lot of what you said, Mike, but one thing that I might take slight exception to is the notion that the commissioners are entrusted with determining the vision for the county. I don't think that's true. I think they might plan some capital projects and contracts and things like that, but I think that the council equally is charged with the vision of the county. And I think that we've shown that historically, meaning this, that back when the hospital was in trouble and it became clear that it was a sinking enterprise, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of noise and no splash about what to do. And it was the council that stepped forward and said, we need to sell this asset. It's losing quickly. We hired consultants to come in and tell us how much longer the hospital had, and we made a determination that it needed to be sold, and then came the commissioners, which was great. Then came time for the discussion about where the proceeds from the hospital should go, and quite candidly, it was the foundation, long before the foundation, it was the council that stood up and finally said, look, here's where we think generally the proceeds from the sale ought to go. And then at that time we had a lot of discussion as a council, about the future and the vision of Porter County. Those discussions happened here. They did. They happened right here in this room with this council, or with the council. And we talked about a Porter County that would be flush with money, that would be solvent, that would not be having to concern itself with additional income taxes, that eventually we had to anticipate the circuit breaker and what it's doing to the revenue for the county. And we painstakingly brought this county through some very difficult times, some very lean times. At times we rolled $24,000 over from one year to the next. And it was the vision of the county council that made this county not just the most solvent county in the state of Indiana, but I would argue probably the most solvent county in the history of the state of Indiana. So I think that we shouldn't downplay our role in this, because quite frankly, we've taken a leadership along the way. That's not to say the commissioners aren't doing that now, but I'm just telling you historically. So where are we at now? Having said what I just said, well, we rolled over north of $3 million from the general fund last year. Now, that was a lot of the commissioners' involvement with the insurance. We have roughly $7.1 million of hospital principal, the $10 million we set aside, so we got $7.1 million there. We've got $6.3 million of earnings from last year that are sitting waiting to be moved to transfer to the county, and statutorily, up to 5% of the earnings, as you know, comes into the Porter County government for use. So we have been visionaries, and we must continue to be visionaries. I'm not one that's going to wait for a capital project or a capital plan and just say, that sounds great. And I don't think the commissioners are going to do that, quite frankly. We've had meetings now. I want to be involved in that planning. I want to be involved in that prioritizing, and that's going to be our responsibility, and it's a big one. But just to talk a little bit about, I've told you the millions that we have sitting, but just talk a little bit about the foundation. So I track these foundation earnings, and I track them pretty regularly, not for any other reason other than I thought you guys might want to know what's going on, but I'm also always concerned that we don't get afoul of our 45% equities limit with our investment policy. So I track to see what our sales are doing and what our portfolios are doing and how much of it is being transferred into equities and out. We're fine right now. But just to kind of give you some idea of what the foundation is, what the earnings are doing. So I asked a couple questions last time I looked at the equities amount of our investments. I said, okay, what percentage have we gained this year? How have we done this year? We know how we did last year. We had a partial year, 9 months, and you're correct, Mike, we did, and I agree with you, that we really started investing March 31st of 2016, which was a real fast track from the time that the statute allowed us to do that. We set up the foundation, we set up investment policy, we set up bylaws, we did all that stuff, and we got that money moved over and transferred in pretty quick time. But so last year we made $6.3 million in earnings, which was up from the $1.7 million that we made the year before. So through the efforts of the creation of this foundation, we made another roughly $4 million for the county in 9 months. This year, I'm happy to report that we're having a very good year this year. For example, from January 1st of this year to May 12th of this year alone, we've earned 4.56% on our money. So we're having just an incredible year. This quarter, April 1st to now, we've had alone about 1.36%. So we're in really good shape. We're in really good shape. And this is what we've all been talking about for years. There's going to come a time when, after years of having to tighten our belts and years of having to really cut, our biggest problem is going to be, how do we prioritize the money? So somebody asked me recently, well, what's the answer? Who does that money belong to? Where does it go to? And I think that if we have discussions amongst the 10 of us, you might get 10 different answers. You might get 10 different views or visions or ideas of where the money goes. I can't speak for anybody else. I can speak for myself. And I've said this the whole time. Back to the sale of the hospital, there were those philosophical discussions. Is this money taxpayer money that should just go to a one-time tax credit? Well, that would create havoc, by the way, with the state. So we couldn't do that. Is this money all for medical? Is this all for, because it's from the sale of a medical facility? There's an argument to that. Or does this money really belong to the Porter County citizens to be used to better Porter County, to make Porter County a better place? And I would suggest that for me, and I wasn't going to go this far into it, but I just feel I need to clarify my position. I think it's all of the above. I think it's all of the above. And I've always thought that a percentage of our earnings ought to go to social services. That's my personal belief. Now, there are folks that might argue that, and that might be something that people would argue that I've just got it wrong. But I believe that we have an obligation as county leaders, just as Mike said, to do those things that are incumbent upon government. Renovate buildings, construct new buildings, make sure that the sheriff's department is properly funded, make sure that your roads are paved. All of these, the 911 is up and running, and there's a lot of unknowns with the cost of the 911 and some of these other things. But I also think that when we talk, that it's our responsibility to improve the quality of life of our residents, the quality of life of our residents. I've just told you we are the most solvent financial county in the state of Indiana. But is that enough to improve the quality of life of the people of this county? Personally, I come from a police background. I've seen some of the things that some of the social services have done for families, and you would almost have to be on Mars to not realize the quality of life that those organizations bring. So as we move through this process, and Mike has indicated what the process is going to be, I think it's important that we set aside money for that. Because if there's one thing I've learned through my years as police work is that everybody once in a while needs a hand up. Not a handout, but a hand up. And the federal government and the state government has turned its back on a lot of these people. And I know that because I used to lobby downstate. And I don't want us to turn our back to it. So there's my general speech. So back to the numbers. Our foundation right now, not counting the money that's still held out municipal bonds, has a value of $151.9 million. So I think we're council, we are at a historic time in Porter County. For the first time in a long time, we have the ability to prioritize what we're going to do and not what we're going to cut. So with that, that's all I have to say.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Mary Beth, if you'd like to approach, that would be great.
First of all, I would like to thank the council for this opportunity, and I'd also like to thank everyone that's here tonight to support the Caring Place. We have law enforcement, board members, staff members, church groups. I really appreciate you recognizing the need and the respect for the Caring Place, and I know all of you do as well, so thank you for that. I also know that you have difficult decisions to face. I'll address that in a few minutes, but I'd like to tell you a little bit about what the Caring Place does and why we have a need for a new shelter. The Caring Place has been around since 1978. It's almost 40 years. And we've made 3 different moves, and the current move that we made about 25 years ago was to a house that's about 100 years old. And about 2 years ago, we started looking for a new location because of a number of problems, and also the federal VAWA, the Federal Violence Act Against Women, was requiring shelters to be more diligent about providing safety, about providing accessibility for, and being ADA compliant, and we just really were minimally there. So we found a location about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and we started a capital campaign. We have worked very closely with our board of directors, our leadership team, to make sure that we weren't, doing things prematurely, and that we were being very diligent about the need. And the need is clear. The number one problem in Porter County is drugs. We all know that. Do you know what the number two problem is? Domestic violence. And I don't take that lightly. That's what keeps me up at night. So $2.8 million was determined. We did a feasibility study, and if anybody wants to see it, it's about 75 pages. And I know you're all familiar with what a feasibility study is. It's the proof that you can do this, that it's important, and it's not a want, it's a need. And I know that Rachel has passed out a lot of information about the Caring Place and what we do and some of my cards, so I invite you to contact me later if you want to support this campaign and if you want to know more about it. The $2.8 million is a big hurdle to get to. We started fundraising in January. I'd like to say that kind of like, I guess what the animal shelter did, that was pretty cool, one donor. Well, with a lot of little donors and maybe one or two major donors, we're about at $1 million in our fundraising. That's the good news. The difficulty is end of February, beginning of March, we had some major issues at the shelter. We had a pipe burst upstairs, which caused over $10,000 worth of damage. The ceiling collapsed. The next weekend, the electrical went out. In a routine inspection, it was determined that we had termites. So that accelerated our fundraising. We knew that if we didn't get the shelter built quickly, something terrible could happen. We'd have to close. We fixed all the problems. But it feels like, the finger's in the dam. What's going to happen next? What are we going to do? And the Caring Place really takes care of our most vulnerable citizens. They're victims of violence. They come to the shelter. They need a quiet place to heal. They need to be able to have access to our services, our case management. And being under one roof, we're going to combine all of our programs, our Amanda Forum, our advocacy programs, our case management. I think it will improve the quality of life for this community. We also work with people who have problems with addictions, and some of them have mental health issues as well. So we sort of serve the trifecta of people in our community that need our help. And I'm hearing a lot about, and I don't know all the dynamics of where the money comes from. I'm glad to hear you're solvent. That is great news. I'm hearing a lot of buts, too, but, we have to do this and we have to fund this building. I get that, and I just would like to remove some of those buts and maybe move the Caring Place up on your priority list, because I think we are a priority. And where would police officers have people come that are in a dangerous situation? They wouldn't have any place to bring them. And that's why a lot of them are here tonight. They're upset, and they should be. And it is my responsibility. When you talk about being fiscally responsible, the Caring Place has gone through some tough times, too. We've gone through times when we didn't give raises. We've never come and asked for help. We've gone through times when we wondered if, we were going to be able to do this program or that program because funding was cut. We never cut services, but we cut back. So I understand that. So this is the first time we've ever come for help. It's not the way we do things at the Caring Place. But there are many instances, even recently, that have, and I don't know if, Debbie, you want to come up and talk about that at all. We have a woman in shelter right now that came in. Yeah. I just want you to know that these are citizens who live here. It's kind of funny. I was driving through my favorite drive-through, getting my beverage, my iced tea, and a woman reached out, handed me my iced tea, and says, "Hi, I'm staying at the Caring Place." She got a job. She was safe. She was living across the street. You could probably figure out where that was. But these are people who live and work in our community. They need your help. We need your help. I'm not here as Mary Beth Schultz. I'm here representing the Caring Place, and I take that very seriously. Debbie, do you want to talk a little bit about the client?
Sure. Hi, thank you for having us tonight. I think it is important to recognize that, our clients aren't widgets. They're not buildings. They're not trees. These are people, and they're people that have a very definite need. They work here in the community. They work at the cleaners. They work at the hospital. They're teachers. Yes, some of them are homeless, but they are also women and children that are in a very terrible situation. Last week, we had a woman come in. She had a 3-month-old baby girl with her, And she had been hit so hard in the face, her bruise started above her eyebrow, went down the entire side of her face, extended onto her neck. And it was so unbelievable, number one, that somebody could do that to another person. But she came to us, and you know why? Because she had nowhere else to go. She said, I couldn't go to my mom's, who lives in the same town, really not far from where she lived, because he told her, if you leave with the baby, I will go there and I will kill you all. And you know what? She believed him, and we should believe him. And those are the people we deal with every day. These are terrible situations. They're terribly violent. And I think it's just hard for me to imagine being in that position, but also I wonder if the caring place isn't there, then what number are they going to call? And where are the police going to take them? So I'd really like you to think about that, and I'd really like you to help us.
The other thing I'd like to mention too, thanks Debbie, and Debbie lives at the shelter every day.
It's heaven.
Someone got locked out last night, she was there at midnight, locked themselves out of the office where we have our 24/7 crisis call center. So the people that work at the caring place, I mean, I'm a nurse, that's my background. I always think I can fix things. So going and asking for help is not my first usually go-to item. It's like, let's solve this problem, let's figure it out. Trust me, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think the caring place needed the help right now. And we have done our due diligence. We are really working hard with our contractor. He's waiting, but we have to have 80% in the bank, and that's why we needed some help from the county. We are a county organization. 80% of our residents are from Porter County, to get those shovels in the ground, if not sooner or by August, because then the price could go up, and the project will go cold, and then our fundraising is going to be even more difficult. Are we going to continue to fundraise? Absolutely. Are we looking for other funding sources? Every single day. We call people. We're working with our donors. We're supposedly in a quiet phase, which became very public when all these things went wrong at the shelter. And that's okay, because we want people to know the need. We want people to know the emergent need, and we're hoping that we can get help. So I don't know if you have any questions, but...
Mary Beth and Debbie, I'd like to just express my heartfelt appreciation for the work that you do, and I support the work that you do. And I think everybody here understands and appreciates the work that you do for those that are so vulnerable and need the help. And, you know, hopefully through this venue, we're able to, if nothing else, we're able to communicate to the community that there is a dramatic need, a drastic need for the caring place. And with the newspapers that are represented here, hopefully that message is loud and clear, and hopefully that message goes out so that everybody can look at their hearts and determine what sort of conviction they have to help support this such immediate, important need in the community. And so I would ask everybody to look at their conviction, to say, is this a need that they feel personally strongly enough about to contribute to the cause? And then they can look at their personal budgets, like we all have, and make a determination as to what percentage of their personal budget that they're able to offer up to help support the good work that you folks do. And hopefully through this communication, that word can get spread far and wide, and it will hopefully make a good impact on the initiative that you have for your capital campaign. That's certainly my hope, and I appreciate you sharing the story and also the request personally with us, and hopefully that avenue was helpful for you. Any of the council members have anything they'd like to add, or any questions for Mary Beth or for Debbie?
Well, quite truthfully, I'd just like to say I'm so glad that you came forward to us, that you do offer a tremendous service, and it's such a needed service, as you pointed out. Domestic violence is not going away, and it seems to be, like you said, the number 2 crime, actually, that's in our county. In the past, the council has made monetary offerings to people that have come forward. I've been on this council, and I would just like to say that when we do get our finances in order, we do get that line item in order, that I would like to see us consider, I'm not saying, this is for that committee to decide what we will be giving to nonprofits and so forth. But I know that we have helped other people in the past, and I feel as if this is definitely an area where I would be willing to vote yes for an offering.
Thank you, Sylvia. Well, I appreciate all of your attention.
I think there's more to come.
Just one more.
Yes.
I wanted to thank everybody for coming during their dinner hour to show their support of your organization. And that, all your signage, we support the Caring Place. I support the Caring Place. I wish tonight I could write you a check personally, but I can't. And right now the county doesn't have its rules and regulations in order to be able to even open it up and put our not-for-profits out there. And I believe, as Michael does and Dan does, and I'd like to see us help our not-for-profits, but just go above and beyond to serve in specialized needs. And I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that people have a place to go.
Thank you.
And it's a difficult time right now. We're just not there yet. But your organization goes above and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sheriff, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Tim?
Can you put this in perspective for us a little bit? I'm hearing that this is the second largest issue that we have facing this county.
You've got our numbers, right, to pass them out. I know I talked to Councilman Bozak a couple weeks ago. I think he was shocked. No question, and Mary Beth said it more eloquently than I can. But our number one problem is drugs. And we know it's heroin. But our number two problem in this county, and it's been like that for a long, long time, is domestic violence. They had a shooting in Portage last week involving they had a shooting a couple days ago, but they had almost a police officer killed was the result of a domestic violence case. And that gets headlines, of course, but they don't remember all of the cases, the statistics case that we brought to your attention. Just think about this. When somebody calls the police department, that's about the 30th or 40th time that she and that family's been victimized, and they finally call the police because the neighbors call, the kids call. So it's kind of not, the numbers are not even reflective of what the problem is. This is a public safety and a law enforcement issue without question. But quality of, Dan Whitten said it best, it is a quality of life issue. It is a quality of life issue. Everything, go through, just, if you don't believe me, look at all the cases that we respond to every day. It's not always mother versus a wife versus husband. It's kids versus kids. And it's getting more and more violent. And one thing she kind of glossed over a little bit is that they have 10 ladies in there that are funded through Portage Star that are substance abuse people. And the third problem we have is mental health. And they deal with those three issues every day. So it's hard for me. I understand you have to spend money on bridges and roads and stuff, but we have a problem. We have a problem in this county. And that's why, I was elected to keep for the public, my job is to make sure we have safety and security in the county. No question about it. And this is part of social issues. And you got elected as a fiscal body to deal with what is right. What is right. And what I heard a little bit ago, it seems like they got some money somewhere. It's just now it's the idea, it all boils down to what we're going to spend it. Well, I'm telling you, as far as law enforcement is concerned, this is a no-brainer. We have to stand up. If that place closes down, really, what? 2:00 in the morning, we go to a domestic violence situation, and I've been talking to the sheriffs, Jasper County, thinking, this place closes, what are we gonna do? So, Sheriff, you're in Jasper County, so where's your carrying place? They call it the crisis center. Well, it's a mental there. Holy moly. Here's the deal. You have to understand, they got kids going to school, grade school, middle school, high school. What are we gonna do, send them to Rensselaer? How are they gonna get to Rensselaer? And they got one in Michigan City. Okay, that's a little closer, but it's full. So that's not gonna be a problem. So I mean, this is it. This is our problem. It's not Jasper County's problem. It's not LaPorte's problem. It's Porter County's problem. And I know you guys pretty good, and I know it's tough. You got two entities here, two political entities trying to do what's right. And I just hope, I know at the end of the day when you look in the mirror, sometimes it's real simple. I got to make the decision that's the right decision for Porter County. And I hope I'm pretty comfortable that you're going to make that right decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. I just, it's been weighing on me. Last couple of days, I haven't said much to anybody. I don't know if you guys set this up on purpose or not. Come in here 2 days after Mother's Day. But the timing was impeccable. I have somebody very close to me that spent a portion of their Mother's Day at the gravesite, visiting their mother, who's buried there because of domestic violence. It's not something we can bury our head on. It's not. I don't know. I hear that we're the most solvent county in the state. We are. We've done a lot. We've done our job. But how do we just say that and say, oh, well, we're in great shape. We're the most solvent county in the state, but we don't have our paperwork in order. Come back. That's not responsible. That's not responsible of us. If we can help, then we need to help. If we're sitting on this much money and we have the ability, this is the #2 issue in this county, we have a responsibility to stand up and help. I don't know what that is. I don't know what way that is. But to say come back when our paperwork's in order it's unacceptable to me. So,
Anyone else?
Question. At your capacity, how many people are you allowed to have in your facility?
Right now, we can serve about 25 people, women and children. That's including children. It's about 3,000 square feet where we're at now. The new shelter will have 8,000 square feet, but it'll be all on one level. Our current capacity, even though we can serve 25, it's dormitory-style living. So if you have an older adult, and we are dealing with the aging baby boomer population, they can't climb on top of that top bunk. And there's no privacy. We have maybe one office that our staff, our case managers, can go to work with clients. And when we have a group, we have to put on a sound machine so that their confidentiality is protected. So we're on top of each other right now and have been for a while. But as I said earlier, we tried to do this with our due diligence and doing a strategic plan and having a capital campaign in place. And, had all these problems not occurred, late February, early March, we probably just continue fundraising and you wouldn't see us here. But that's definitely accelerated the need, and we are fearful that if we had to close, where would people go?
Well, your new shelter, how many people do you think you'll be able to accommodate?
45.
45.
Mm-hmm.
So last year, we had a lot of discussion about getting the policies and procedures in place, and this is why. This is what was going to happen if we didn't. And I was told that we had to wait for our capital projects plan. That was last year. Now we're at this year. And I'm told that this capital projects plan is coming next month, which is great. Still don't have the numbers for it. Still don't know how much things are going to cost. Still don't know what the priorities are. Still don't know. January of this year, I said, let's get those policies and procedures in place. I was told, wait, we have to get our capital projects in place. We have to figure out what our funding needs are. That was January. This is May. This is what I was worried about. Now, I'm somebody who believes very strongly in social services, very, very strongly in that. And again, it's because of my background in police work. But I just can't, until you're there, until you're at the home, and it's complete and utter chaos, and there are children there who are going to be the next generation and the next generation, and this is our opportunity to steer them one way or the other, and you have a victim of domestic violence, and as a police officer, you want to get them someplace safe, and they just don't have anywhere to go. I mean, someone told me the other day, well, why don't they just leave? I couldn't believe the stupidity of that. I just couldn't fathom in this day and age the utter and absolute stupidity of that. Now, by the way, that was an elected official whose name shall remain silent. But I said, are you on Mars? Why don't they just leave and go where? To a relative's house to be hunted down? To a friend's house to be stalked? Where do the kids go? Where are they going to stay? Where are they going to be safe? And then there's the police officer. And I remember talking to a police officer, and he said, well, I think I've done my job, haven't I? I said, you may have done your duty as a police officer, but have you fulfilled your duties as a human being? If this person dies tonight, have you done enough? So as we're working ourselves through this, I think we ought to get this process done now. Now! Not a year from now. Not June of next year, not waiting on the capital projects plan that just doesn't seem to come. We have people in this county who are suffering, and we have the potential to put together the means to help them along, to help them through it. That's why I run for office. That's why I'm here, because I want to make a difference in their lives. I want to be that last refuge to a desperate family. I want to be part of that. I understand we're going to build parks in South County, and I understand this is a death trap out here. We've got to fix that. I get all that stuff. But we have families in this county. We have people in this county who are suffering. And I'm sitting here in May. Check the minutes, guys. I was asking for policies and procedures last year. We're sitting here in May. And we have the potential, you heard what I said, we have the potential to make a difference. And we're not. That's what it comes down to. We need to get this done. I heard the commissioner say today it's going to be 2018. Not good enough. Not fast enough. Not concise enough. We have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to the families of this county. Ethical, fiscal, and moral. Now let's get it done. Let's help these people, not just them, but everybody who is improving the quality of lives of people in this county. The left behinds, the people that have nowhere else to go. Let's do that someplace. Let's get this done. I agree with you, Mike. We got to get the policy in place. We got to do it. You're absolutely right. Let's get it done. Let's be that hand up. Let's be that somebody that they can say, they made a difference in my life. They saved me. That's it. I'm done. Come on.
Any other comments at this point, or anything? Any questions for Mary Beth?
I just had a question. You said that you guys had solved these issues for now, correct? And you've got the money locked in till August, or you need this done by August? Can you kind of elaborate a little bit?
We have approximately one-third of our fundraising completed with the capital campaign, a little over $1 million. I think today it was 1.25, not 25. Okay. $1,025,000, okay. The problem is that when you're doing a capital campaign and when you're working with contractors, they have a lot of subcontractors. I'm learning as I go. And the reason for the 80% is in the bank is they want to get paid. Mm-hmm. And we can't do that in loans. Small nonprofits can't work with loans. It's a weakness that other funders will look at and say, wow, you're carrying $1 million in debt? We're not going to fund you. And our funding source is very diverse. We get money from foundations, from the state, through the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute, from United Ways, 3 different ones. So, I mean, we have to protect the integrity of our organization and do things the right way. So we're not going to start building the shelter until we have that 80% in the bank. So we're not coming and asking for the full amount, just enough to get us to that point where we can put shovels in the ground before August. And as I mentioned, prices could go up in August because the project will go cold.
So, Mike, it's my understanding that the commissioners are coming to us in June with their capital projects, correct?
That's my understanding.
Just sort of a general.
Yep.
And I think auditor will have a pretty good idea, once we get our draw, how solvent our general fund's looking this year, correct?
Partially, yes.
Well, I
Did
think...
you get your question answered?
Yeah, I did. I just have one other one. Is the steering committee on hold until you have the capital project, or are you guys moving forward?
Absolutely not. The steering committee, which just met on May the 9th for the first time, we have talked about the structure. We've talked about contacting outside facilitators to help develop the structure. As it stands currently, if you look at a foundation, I've done some research with the help of Bill Higbee at the Porter County Community Foundation, and they've been very helpful in terms of giving us information and also connecting us with a consultant that has helped them in the past in terms of establishing the structure for it. And for those of you who are involved with the Porter County Community Foundation would understand it's a very involved process, and it does take many steps, and ultimately, as a result of that, they come up with parameters and they come up with guidelines as to how their distribution of funds will work. And to add a little insight or to give you an idea as to how that would work from their standpoint, the Porter County Community Foundation, when it comes to receiving requests for grants on capital campaigns specifically, they have, as part of their stipulation, a $25,000 maximum grant that they would give. And in addition to that, they have additional rules and stipulations that would say not only is there a maximum of $25,000 that would be gifted to a capital campaign, but that is only after the organization that's requesting the grant reaches 60% of their fundraising goal. So those are all the things that we're learning about in terms of how a foundation works and how grants are reviewed and how potential requests are offered up. And I'm telling you at this point, we need those things desperately, and we're going to move forward to get answers to those questions. But at this point, we literally don't have any of it. And that's, again, it speaks to a bit of the premature. Don't disagree with Dan for a second. It should have been done by now. The foundation was created back in March, I believe, of last year, and we should have those things in place. Absolutely agree. And it is shameful that we don't. And I'm committed to say that we are going to get those things in place so we can, in addition to investing the money appropriately where we are earning a greater interest, but then we're also given the opportunity to do what's right with that money. And so those are the things that the steering committee is working on, and we're not waiting at all for what the commissioner is going to develop to decide what our path is going to be.
Well, I would ask, here's my, so along that vein, one of the questions that I've asked, or I think we've discussed in the past, is will a percentage of our proceeds, or earnings, I mean to say, be allocated to social services? So here's my question, and I don't know that this is a steering committee question. I think this is, quite frankly, a question for all of us. You don't have to answer it right now, but I mean, generally speaking, are we going to look to utilize the proceeds or the interest earned on funding capital projects first, and then, see what we've got left, and then make a determination as to whether or not there's any left for any social services? Or are we going to say a certain percentage of the interest is allocated to social services, whatever that number turns out to be? Now, I do agree that we need desperately for criteria for any group that is looking for grants. They're going to need to know the playing field. They're going to need to know the criteria. They're going to need to know whether they even qualify. I don't want people depending on the money if they don't have any chance of getting it. We need to let, transparency. But I'm not sure, it was my understanding that our steering committee we're going to work on some drafts, and we're going to get those things in place. But I think it's incumbent, and I think, Mike, you agree with this, because and this isn't even disputing, I think you and I have talked about this. Then when we get to our foundation meeting, there's going to be some discussion about what everybody thinks that the finished product is going to look like. And I just don't know where everybody stands on how they want to approach that. Do you want to set aside, because right now we have money going for not-for-profits, do we want to ensure that we have a percent or a portion of our earnings every year set aside for not-for-profits? Or do we want to say, this is how much money we are going to allocate to our capital projects, and if our earnings are less than that, then there's nothing left for the social services or the not-for-profits? And I don't know where everybody feels.
And I can, and if anyone disagrees, please speak up, but I feel like I can safely say that everybody on the council, and also the commissioners included, would agree that social services are an important part of where the foundation proceeds and the interest earned should go. I don't think there's any dispute about that.
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, and we don't, I don't know at this point. I'd like to think that way. And as I steer the steering committee, I can tell you that's going to be my view on it, for sure. And I think, it speaks to a piece of that pie talking about quality of life, and that could be a component of what we distribute a percentage of the earnings to. But those are all things that, as you mentioned, should have been determined prior to now. They haven't been. That's all part of this process that we have to put in place, so we don't have to go through this process on a each and every year sort of basis. But we're just not there yet, and that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it.
Well, and the good news is that, as I've said, there's 6.3 sitting there from last year, and although we've talked in terms of the ambulance contract coming out of that, we're going to be looking to vote on that later on, to talk about whether that should come out of the hospital principal, which I think we've already discussed should. We've talked about the sheriff's pension coming out of there. Later on the agenda, we have a vote on that. Whether it should come out of the general fund, I think, is the request that's in front of us, which will, of course, hit that $3 million plus carryover, presumably, and will preserve more of that 6.3. So. And I think of the $2 million, like I said, of the $2 million that's sitting there in existing hospital interest, only about $1 million of that's been appropriated at this time. So we are in a good spot. We're in a good spot to move it along. And I've also talked to not-for-profits, Mike, and we've talked about that, or foundations, and we've talked about how some of those entities do that. And Porter County's facing the problem of what if we have a bad year of earnings? How are we going to stomach our way through that sort of stuff? But I just think we need to get this done. I just do. But I think that the foundation as a group needs to give our committee some indication as to where they want us to go.
And as I spoke with the consultant, that's definitely part of her message.
Right.
Is that all 10 need to speak to what their vision is, so that we can start to narrow the path. Yep, that's an excellent point.
Can I ask the three people that are on the steering committee, and I know absent one commissioner, if we can fast-track this grant application process as quickly as I know we want to hire somebody to guide us correctly, and get it out there as soon as we can.
Sure.
Yeah, and part of that process, and I don't mean to speak for the committee because I don't, is we're also going to be creating a budget for the foundation, because the capital city's expense needs to come out of that. Mm-hmm. So that's a good way to be transparent and sort of track the money.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yes.
Okay.
This committee is somewhat news to me. I think Dan hit on the head. I would think this committee would have been appointed out of the foundation, not some, I don't want to get into it too much, but, what is the direction of this committee? Is it just to form,
actually, Jeremy, I can answer that. Prior to March, we didn't have a committee, and we didn't have any opportunity to put anything in place that we need as a foundation. So it was my decision as chairman of the foundation to put together a committee that can start working on these things that, in my opinion, could have or should have been done prior to now. So it's really an opportunity to try to expedite the process and things that we need in place to make sure that we can get the foundation functioning as it should be. And so the plan would be through the steering committee to make a presentation with the information that we've received and the research that we've done and the work that we've done behind the scenes to the foundation meeting in June. Otherwise, in my estimation, from experience, it doesn't appear as if a lot of the legwork or the necessary structure to it has been done. And that's, again, why we're in the position we're in today.
Well, if I just might clarify one point. Some time ago, and I see what you're saying, I understand, Mike, and I appreciate your enthusiasm. But, candidly, as you know, last year I had created some drafts. I'd asked the group, hey, give me some input on this because I am not going to make the decision. I talked about it at the foundation meetings. I need some input from everybody as to what kind of the things I just talked about. Do you want these? Do you want to move forward with a percentage of the proceeds, interest going for not-for-profits, or do you not? I need to know what the group is thinking, and that's where it ended.
Yeah, well, I guess, and I agree with what you're saying partially, Dan. The reality of it is, we have talked about it ever since the inception of the foundation, and my guess is we probably have talked about it in advance of the foundation even being created, about the things that are going to be needed to create this organization that's going to be able to do the good work. The difficulty where we're at today is, frankly, all we've done up till now, other than create the foundation, invest the money appropriately, which we're all thankful and appreciative, and that work, I think, is important. We're earning more interest. But in terms of the structure or the development of the organization or the foundation, and all we've done is talk about it. And so I'm saying through the steering committee, something needs to be done so we can satisfy some of the needs and demands that are out there.
Okay, and I appreciate, you're right, you're absolutely right, except for that's not true. We haven't just talked about it. First of all, as I told you, I created some drafts, and you know that, but more importantly, philosophically, the question wasn't answered. How does the money come in? Is it going to be a foundation expenditure? Is it going to be a foundation appropriation? I have a problem with commissioners who aren't entrusted with the statutory authority to appropriate funds, voting on appropriations. In fact, I think that is part of our vision. But, or is it a county council function, since in fact the statute calls for the proceeds up to 5% to come into the county? It doesn't say to go into the foundation, it doesn't say to go into the commissioner's funds, it just says it comes into the county, which honestly, we budget against the hospital interest quite a bit. I mean, that's what we don't ask for permission from anybody else to pass a budget that allocates or appropriates $1.4 million to insurance out of the interest. So up until this year, and this is the first time we've had the money, by the way, up until this year, the thought was it was going to come into the county. We would have the ability as the county council to appropriate those funds, but we needed the commissioner's input if we're going to do anything with it, like build stuff, contract with things, that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the discussion in the background, how that mechanism would work. So it makes sense that it be the foundation in the end. It makes sense that it be that. So that's the direction that I wanted to know where we were going. And now, apparently, we know. So.
But quite truthfully,
Yes.
we've been waiting for a plan. And I feel as if I for one will be very happy when this plan comes to fruition, when it's here, that we can find out what direction we're going, where we're going, and so that we can start acting. We've got this money. I think we need to start really providing for our county here. I feel social services are it's something that can't be ignored. We've got the money, we can't just ignore this.
And listen, this is a case of first impression. There's no other county in the state that has had this. We're the first one ever. And so when you ask the State Board of Accounts, how should it go, you get 3 answers from three different people that are all very different. So we are forging new ground. We don't want to misstep, we don't want to make a mistake, and so we're moving in a direction that nobody else, I don't feel like Star Trek here, we're boldly going where no one has gone before. So, there.
Any other comments?
Excuse me. I don't want to, I think we'll come back later. I don't think they want to hear us get into everything about, I think I have a little bit of a problem with this committee, but that's not something that I'll be like airing right now, later in the meeting. But, again, just doesn't mean that we can't move forward. It doesn't mean that this foundation, the foundation board can't hear a request. Doesn't mean that they can't come in front of the full board. I thought that was probably the more appropriate spot, but I'm glad that you guys came here today. I don't see why the full board, however they decide on just one vote, that this can't be heard. So, just because, again, we don't have our paperwork in order doesn't mean, we already are giving the social services. We decided that a while ago with the hospital interest money. We said yes before without any kind of process in place. Doesn't mean we can't hear them out, the full foundation.
Yeah, and the reason, and that's why I appreciate Mary Beth and the Caring Place coming, is they asked to come to the meeting, and that's why they're here, to make their presentation so that council members can become more familiar with their plight and the issue that's before us. And, Jeremy, just to say, on behalf of, from the perspective of the steering committee was specifically designed to get this process moving forward. And that's why we exist, that's why we're doing the work that we're doing, to try to put some meat to the bone in terms of what we're trying to accomplish with the foundation. And we have to do that. So and that was an effort on my part to try to expedite that process.
Well, it should have been done a while ago. I think Dan had brought that up about the rules. If you want to talk about it, let's go. The rules before, I thought I read in the paper that it was shot down by you and Commissioner Good, that we're not there. So this was in place before to go forward. It was stopped. It was said, no, we're not even going down that path. Now, all of a sudden, there's a committee. This committee should have been formed out of the foundation. The foundation, the 10 board members should have had a SAMUS committee and given direction to that committee. You are not the foundation, just like you are not the county council. So earlier you said the council's not ready. You don't speak for me. I was ready to hear it, and I heard it, and it's the same thing. That foundation should have been born, this committee should have been born out of that foundation. So, and one thing that, for Dan, is many faults that he has, and he has a lot.
I do.
One thing that he did when he created a committee, it wasn't in the back room. It was in the light of day. It was transparent. And Dan always, no matter what the makeup of this council was, Dan always included an equal number of Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Jeremy, although I don't view this as a partisan issue at all. This is a Porter County issue. And so, again, my attempt in creating the committee, which as chairman of the foundation, rightfully or wrongfully, is certainly within my right to create a committee to try to get things moving forward, to try to make the foundation more purposeful, more productive, and some meaning behind it. And from my perspective, I wanted to put something in place that wouldn't just continue to kick the can down the road, continue to talk about it, but not have anything to show for it. And so I appreciate or respect your opinion on it, but certainly don't agree with it.
Well, I think I agree with both of you. I think that, Mike, I've established a lot of committees over the years, and I think that you're absolutely correct. Sometimes that just gets it moving. And I think that was important. We haven't even transferred the money yet, by the way. Still sitting in cash with Schwab, because we have to create a place to put it. So yes, we have new money, and we need to figure out what to do with it. Although I guess I do have to agree with Jeremy that just for transparency's sake, I think we should, whatever committees are established, by the way, anybody on this board can establish a committee, I hate to tell you that, but we don't because we've always deferred to the chairman and we'll continue to do so. But it probably should happen at a public meeting so that everybody has the opportunity to ask to be on it. Just a thought.
Yeah, I appreciate your view on it, Dan. Again, I can simply say, as a newly elected chairman of the committee, of the foundation, at the end of March, I was convicted in the sense that the committee or the foundation needed to move forward, and I felt that was the avenue to get the foundation moving forward. So that's the route I chose, and as a result, we are further ahead today than we were when I took over at the end of March. So I appreciate everyone's feedback. Anybody else have any specific comments relative to the caring place or specifically to Mary Beth?
I just want to say that I appreciate, again, echoing everyone else's opinion, what you guys do for the county here, and it's pretty awesome. And to me, you would be higher up on it. You asked, if
Thank you.
if
We're
we...
on top of the list.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all we want. We want to be at the top of the list, priority-wise.
I think President Jensen is going to push this along, and it's going to be a little quicker than we all had originally thought. Not this specific, but the actual
I know,
coming up with the
process.
rules. Exactly.
And if there are any next steps, just let us know. We'd be happy to comply with any types of procedures or more information that you might need.
Could you give me some background, Mary Beth, on how many other counties we serve besides this? And you guys have arrangements with some of the local motels and hotels to house people also, don't you?
We do not. New rules with the Federal Violence Against Women's Act, you cannot house anymore. We would have to put cots on the floor or figure out other shelters that might be willing to work with us. We do serve Lake County and Stark County. We get about one client a year from Stark County and about 20% from Lake County, but 80% of the residents in shelter are from Porter County.
Has Lake County stepped up and helped in this?
We get funding from Lake Area United Way, and we have people on our cabinet that are from Lake County, our campaign cabinet in raising funds. And as I said earlier, we are asking everyone that we can think of to help at this point.
So have you approached them, the council over there, for any funding?
They don't really have they have a domestic violence council, but it's not part of the court systems. It's kind of a mess over there right now, but we are looking into it.
Well, I just want to clarify something. I'm new on the council, but I sat back and waited till the end because I thought that it was going to get pretty heated, and it did. And it became pretty political. As you've probably seen in the audience, you can hear that it was divided when it was formed, and it's still somewhat divided. We don't have all the answers. I think that you've obviously heard that. We're, like Dan said, we're like Star Trek. We're just out in space trying to figure it out because there's nothing there. But we all love what you do. There's no question. But it would be irresponsible to the 145,000 or 170,000 other taxpayers for us to make a decision based on just the knowledge that you gave us and the fact that that board isn't in place yet. So I would agree with a lot of the things that were said here tonight. I don't want to pick a fight with Dan. One of the things I ran on was the formation of this, the foundation. The council was democratically run for quite a few years. When this money was sitting there was an option to move forward with it. And Jeremy can argue with Mike currently about how this setup was done, but we've done more in 3 months than we've accomplished in a long time. Dan did a great job being a good steward of the money and getting that organized. And I knew he was waiting for the procedures downstate. I've been studying that pretty heavily, and I understand that is a whole new setup for us also. So I do agree with Mike that I think this is a little premature, and I do think that the council itself isn't prepared for what you have currently. But the foundation obviously would be some place to look for funding, and we really hope to have that resolved quickly.
Thank you.
Any other last comments?
There's so many things I'd like to say right now, but I'm not going to.
I
like Jeff, so
I knew you were going to.
So many things I'd like to
If
share.
not, we again, Mayor Beth, would like to reiterate our appreciation for you being here and making the presentation and also listening to some of the discussion back and forth. It's glad to have you here and everybody else here. Hopefully it's been informative for everybody, and we look forward to determining what exactly we can do to potentially help facilitate your growth.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate your enthusiasm, all of you. Thank you.
And as we move forward, we're going to keep you informed because you're top of our list.
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back to the meeting. Thank you.
So we could fund this foundation.
We're going to believe that.
I said Adam at my meeting.
Are we on?
I just said, I just said Adam at the meeting of Harold. But- Oh, what's going on? Irrigation?
Bruce, you have order? I think we'll be fine. Nothing else. Planning or move more towards
Yes.
probation.
No, what we received, what we have received.
And plus, if they're gonna be here that 1 week, it doesn't.
We have our,
I mean, they-
we have our money invested in a portfolio that if you were to use your private investment, it would be characterized as moderate. The whole thing. Then you just, that's right, so that's a bad year, that's a bad year.
But we're not taxing anything.
Right, so let's hope the market stays up. No, I got it, that's not signed.
Interest is promissory note, equity fluctuation is not,
Earnings, don't call it interest, call it earnings.
dividends.
It'll be fine.
Okay, but it is.
Yes. I get you. Yes.
Will this Synergy Committee report to the council on the dispensation of what happened?
Yes.
Something in the
It will report to the foundation.
How about this?
It will report to the foundation board, which consists of 7 council.
So the other thing,
Bob, I'm somebody's going to have to hold that thought.
About the foundation, you keep in mind, my thing, regardless of whether we're looking at the foundation, or the county council, or the commission, we do need a place to put them.
And I thought Scott was under, I thought the commissioners were gonna create that account.
It was, and that's what I was getting at. The commission, in my opinion, all funds that we approved and I don't know if this would be considered but he's running a different car. Last year, so I'm not sure. I would doubt but it was on the commission decision to say, it's going to be rough.
Yeah. Well, let me talk to him, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I didn't realize that they did today. I assumed they did. One thing that I had talked about, what did you guys vote on, the 500 or 15,000? Make sure that, I want to make sure they did.
Yes.
And we need, everybody tonight, fine. And by ordinance, it's got to be, I mean, it's, even though it's, it was that 10 million that was published, it's not $1 million that was back.
One thing I wanted to ask you, is Fort County putting money in this?
Oh, yeah.
They're putting in 10 grand too, or?
They're putting in 10, we're putting in 10, and they're adding another, I don't know, the balance between 20 and 70 and 35. They're putting it in 8 times services, but the requirement is that there be 18,900.
I guess I should ask you this in the front, so you can explain it for everybody, but.
I never got your mailing that you were gonna send me.
Oh.
You said, remember you were gonna send me information on that? Didn't I? No, not, you said it was gonna come in the mail, you knew my address, I never got it. And then, I forgot how to get a hold of you, so I forgot about it. I'm sorry. No, I'm not mad by any means. I just wanted to tell you. I don't want to interrupt you. You saw me putting stack in your desk. I got those stacks. No, I didn't mean that.
Oh, no problem.
No, I didn't mean it like that by any
You're going to
means.
explain it tonight.
Yeah, no. And you, when we talked to explain it, man. No, I was not.
I know.
What are you been up to?
Oh, just usual. Everything's good. You know, Dad's working like crazy still. I know you are too, and you know,
Just keep moving. Every day keeps going.
Yep. I
When you start,
don't tell Mike. I usually do. I mean, I have a lot actually.
you are at the greatest risk of health and
Oh, nice to meet you. Cool, I would love to. No, the deal that you my wife, when it comes to, remember that. Thank you guys for everything you do, because you're awesome.
You know,
I was really surprised. Oh, yeah, okay. I knew that. So honest.
yeah, you know what?
Yeah, I was really surprised it was number 2. I was really surprised it was the number 2. It's so sad to hear.
I know.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
May not be a bad thing.
We're almost to item 1 on the agenda.
I got 3 kids in my mind.
Okay, if we could call this meeting back to order. And moving on to the agenda, we have commissioners.
No one here?
So it looks, Mr. Chairman, like there's nobody here.
I believe Vicki is prepared to address it.
If I may, can I address this one?
You're kidding.
This is an appropriation that was approved last year, and it is under the auspices of the commissioners, because it's the Major Moves Fund, and...
Great, motion to approve it.
Yes. What happened...
I second that motion. Can we have
Okay.
discussion, Mr. Chairman?
The motion on the floor, there's a second to approve the Major Moves additional, $317,000. Discussion, please.
No, it was discussion.
Was this, can you explain the reappropriation a little bit?
Right. This was approved last year as part of an airport reconstruction of the runway project, and this is going to be a local match towards a federal grant, and there's an RDA participation in this. So it was approved last year, but the airport never spent the money. The grant documentation, the grant paperwork just never came together. And the airport
Can I jump in
director
just
title-
1 second on that? So there's been a couple of delays that are not part of the, this wasn't actually an airport board delay. Actually, they were moving forward on their grant request. I did meet with the airport. I don't know if I'm the liaison, but I'm going to go for it. So there were some requests for money from the RDA, obviously, but some of their FAA funding, there was some additional paperwork that was needed because the RDA's criteria is different than the FAA's criteria, so they had to sort of redo some of their paperwork, and that caused the delay. So so they just needed to do it, bring it up again this year.
Procedural.
And the airport director recently came in and said, well, we're ready now
Right.
to access the money. And I told him, basically, it reverted back to the fund last year, so it needs to be reappropriated. So this is more of a procedural move.
Okay, very good. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Okay, Commissioner Witten, Councilmember.
No, I ain't Biggs. You're going to lay that on me. I'm going to vote yes.
Councilmember Conover.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
And Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you. And next, hospital proceeds?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve this. As you recall, we did discuss this ad nauseum at the last meeting, and
Second.
there you go.
Motion on the floor that has a second for the hospital proceeds, additional $517,000 to contractual services. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Conover.
Yes.
Councilmember Graham.
Yes.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
And Councilmember Witten.
Yes, and can I ask, how much do we have left in that major moves fund? Vicki, I'm just curious.
Major move?
Yeah, going back to that last one.
Okay, about a 2.39 balance.
Okay, thank you. And that's, by the way, another example of where counties historically were given money and spent it almost immediately. Major Moves was a great example. A lot of the counties around us spent that money like it was burning a hole in their pocket, and we did not. We did not. We bonded against it at one point, and we budgeted against it, and
2.3.
still have a pretty good chunk of change.
That's a good thing. Superior Court 2, Judge Alexa.
Mr. Chairman, I see that I did speak with Judge Alexa a little bit on this, and I would make a motion to approve this $10,000 request to other services.
Second.
Motion on the floor that has a second to approve the $10,000 additional to 3991 other services. Any questions?
Could you talk about that program a little bit, Judge?
Surely. The Supreme Court has set up a grant program for adult guardianship services. And LaPorte County and ourselves are proposing to go into this kind of an agreement with them. The Supreme Court will supply $75,000 of that grant. A part of that would be through in-kind services. The in-kind services that we're talking about from LaPorte County are office space, the equipment that's in there and what have you, for the executive director of this group. Porter County will have in-kind services as well. They had asked about space in the courthouse. There is no space in that courthouse. It's bursting at the seams. However, there's two attorneys in town who have volunteered to rent their office space for $700 a month as an in-kind donation.
I am not one of them.
No.
I'm not one of them.
Don Evans and Ivan Bodensteiner are. And it's a program that they have been doing actually by themselves. But this is an organized program where the volunteers, guardians, will be trained. The other thing that we will be doing, I'll give you an example. I think Magistrate Forbes here had a case not too long ago where a person was in a nursing home in Illinois and came to Indiana, and they kicked the person out of the nursing home in Illinois because there was no Medicare or Medicaid application done. There was no guardian appointed for this person to do it. That person's now in Indiana. I think either you or one of the other judges took care of that, and that person is now in the nursing home getting federal government funds. This program would be used basically by nursing homes in the area. Porter Stark Services, I just did one with them, where there was a person living in their assisted living or in their own quarters, and that person was receiving funds from a trust that was set up years back. And so what happened was guardian of this person in the trust was an ex-sister-in-law. And for several years, the bank would be sending money to her, and that was the last anybody ever saw of it. We were able to stop that and try to recover it. And that's the kinds of things they would do. I have here today the executive director, Amber Puff, and an assistant, and that's Catherine Schmidt. Adult, they work with them as well. And basically, that's what...
Well, I just wanted you to give us a rundown, because I just commend you for that program, having both my parents, lost my mom 2 years ago, and my dad several years before that, and knowing what a battle it is, and seeing people in those facilities without representation. It's well needed here in the community, and I just wanted to commend you for that, and thanks for giving us the information about it.
Well, you can thank Kathy Forbes, a magistrate here. She's the one who brought it to our attention.
It's amazing. I'm glad you guys are doing it. Thank you for stepping out.
And I think there's been a lot of talk about the quality of life, and I think that by getting Porter County into this program, you're going to improve the quality of life of our seniors and our incapacitated adults who are now have no one to represent you. I know that Catherine Smith, we have Adult Protective Services, they get calls all the time, but if they don't have someone available as a guardian, they can't go any further. I think she told me earlier today, and you can correct me, that she would say that at least 52 calls a year come to her wanting someone from Porter County to step up as a guardian.
And knowing elderly, that probably could double or triple that number.
Oh.
There's just so many unreported cases.
Well, that's what I say. The fact that I see some of them, it's a small percentage. There's so many more out there that don't get as far to me or into Magistrate DeBoer's court to get the help they need.
Well, and for the record, if need be, I will be Sylvia's guardian. Not that it is now. Whatever right.
Oh, my God. I'm used to it.
That's you're right. Well, there is one more thing I would like to mention, and that is that these funds will not be going outside of government. These funds that we're talking about here are seed money, which must be in cash before they can do it. LaPorte will put in 10, we'll put in 10, the balance will be in the in-kind. But that money will be going to the LaPorte Circuit Court through a memo of understanding between the judges of LaPorte and Porter counties. The board will be set up, and that will be Judge Alavisos at LaPorte County, myself, Judge Bradford, Magistrate Forbes, Magistrate DeBoer, and there you go.
Judge Alavisos?
Yes.
Yeah, I know him. He was the judge for my court case when I got drawn out of my district.
Did he help you?
What?
Did he help you?
Well, I think he found them wrong, but he just made them fix it.
I call the question, Mr. Chairman.
All right, motion on the floor to call the question, prepared to vote. Let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
And Councilmember Conover?
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you, ladies and
Thank you
gentlemen.
very much.
We appreciate it.
Yep, have a good evening.
And some of the incapacitated are really going to appreciate it.
Thank you for all your work.
The seven I have on deck are really going to appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, juvenile probation.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on both of these to reduction in 144.
Second.
Motion on the floor is second for the reduction of salaries, and also the Form 144. Any discussion? No discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
Councilmember Conover?
Yes.
And Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
All that for that.
It's been a rough couple hours for him.
Stormwater management.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, first of all, make a motion on the additional, the transfer, and the 144 on all of the stormwater management requests. And then I'd like to get the discussion after a second.
Second.
Okay, so you're suggesting all...
All of them at once, yes.
Okay, motion on the floor is a second to approve all stormwater management requests on tonight's agenda. Any discussion?
How are we doing with the Stormwater Management Board? How are things going?
Stormwater's doing good. Right now, I mean, it's because of the rain that has been happening here, we haven't been focused on projects that much lately. We haven't been able to get projects prepared to get in front of the management board to get lettings done for construction because our office has been concentrating on working on the complaints.
Right.
And even our engineer. So, I mean, we haven't had time to be able to get 2 projects. It's been almost all complaints right now. We are working on a solution to that, and we have approached the commissioners about that. And
Have we had
discussing.
major flooding here recently in any neighborhoods, communities that, of note, that, you know, you've got a lot of calls from the same area?
We are, some of them are repeats. There's no doubt on that. As far as major flooding, everything, I would say no. I don't think there's been any real major flooding. Are there projects that we need to look at? Yes, there are.
And Jeremy, you're involved in this. I guess I would ask also, I mean, so looking forward, what's the timeline on, what are the first projects out of the box? I know you've told us a little bit about this already, but I'd like to get maybe an update. So what are the first stormwater projects out of the box you're doing, and what's sort of the timeline on those, if you know, maybe you don't?
We're working with Portage on one with Willow Creek Road and 700 North. That's one we are working with the city of Portage on. The projects we can't get to right now, there is a subdivision that needs to have the whole drainage system redone on that. That's in the south part of the county towards the Lakes of the Four Seasons. That one
That's
is up.
where I live.
It's not too far.
Okay, I got you.
Okay. That one, we do need to go and reconstruct the whole drainage system on that. We're looking probably at a $200,000 project.
Jeremy, I know you've talked to Portage a little bit. What's the story on, what's the progress on that, do you know?
Talked to Scott McClure last week sometime and asked him also about that. He said the drawings weren't final, my understanding on that project. And, you know, I had asked this council, you know, about possibly loaning money to the Stormwater Board, and, you know, I relayed that to Bob, that it seemed like everybody was on board possibly doing that, but talking to Scott again last week, it appears that we may be close to some kind of partnership with Twin Creeks Conservancy District coming on board.
Okay.
So Scott was going to respond to their proposal, and I believe it should happen, and then at that point in time, Scott mentioned possibly then, once we began to bond for large projects over there, that he may fold that Portage project
Revenue.
into that one, yes. So there's some moving parts. I think things are pretty promising with that up in, you know, my district, but in terms of projects, Dan, you know, I come to the advisory board, and they're kicking projects out left and right. You know, they'll do a little review at the end, and there's a lot going on. They're busy departments. I can't imagine requests that they're getting, you know, on a daily basis, but they're going out. And I know right now you've got interns coming in.
Right.
You're going to use interns this summer.
Right.
To help begin to map out the county. So.
Right. I might have these numbers reversed to give you an idea. Just this year, since January, I believe we have received 180 complaints, and we try to get out and receive them. And compared to last year, 150.
Okay.
I'd like to.
Plenty of work to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to ask, this project that you said you're going to redo the subdivision?
Right.
Was that one of the main ones that, I think there initially 10 that were on the project board?
No, this wasn't. This is one that had been started and installed. It's not very little storm sewer in it. It's more of getting in and regrading ditches on it. The flow was not going good. People have cattails up
That's not
in their...
falling waters, is it? That's not the falling waters?
No. South of that.
Oh.
I can't... Fieldstone Manor.
Thank you.
Their name just came to me.
Okay.
So, I mean, but there's a couple of other large projects we want to get to, and as
So
far
it
as
wasn't one that
tile
was
systems.
initially identified in that study?
No, with the study,
We are working on one right now with Duck Creek. We should be really getting that one done here. I'm hoping after this year, a major portion of that. I mean, they were talking about that would be like over $1 million for us to work on to complete that, and we are probably going to come in at $300,000 to $350,000 on that one, and get it substantially
You
done.
will be getting tax money soon, though, won't you?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
As you can tell, I don't know if this has always been the case, but I don't think so, that he's in front of us with Cumulative Bridge Fund underneath him right now, Stormwater Plan Commission. He's got everything's kind of starting to fall under him. He's got Andy, I don't know if Andy's working out of your office, but you do have the engineer up there now.
Yes.
So the office is growing up there, so I believe he's going to be, his responsibilities are growing, as you can see.
Absolutely.
Yes.
A lot more work being done.
Highway engineering is now up in the office since after the first of the year.
Okay, any other comments? If not, roll call, please. This is on all requests under stormwater management.
Councilmember Bozick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
Councilmember Conover?
Yes.
Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
And Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Sheriff?
Have a good day.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the additional for the police pension.
Is there a second?
Yes.
Motion on the floor that has a second for the additional for the $580,000 going to the sheriff police pension. Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. So, this is the first installment on the police pension for the year?
Second.
Second. So, where did we take the first one from?
We budgeted it.
Yeah, where did it come out of? Did it come out of general fund? Did it come out of?
Yeah.
So, when we talk, do we want this also to come out of general fund? And I only say that because at times we've talked about, and I don't have a problem with it coming out of general fund, but I mean, at times we've talked about, or anticipating this, the sheriff's pension coming out of hospital interest. I don't know, it's probably 6 and 1/2 dozen the other at this point, but is this the direction we want to go?
It's a good question, and I was going to bring that up. I mean, we understand it's our obligation, and we're going to pay it. We've always have. But, I mean, Vicki, do you think that is this safe to do out of the general fund? Should we look to hospital interest? I believe you think we're going to have some left over in hospital interest?
Well, right now in hospital interest, the net after the appropriations that have been approved, we have just over $1 million left in the hospital interest fund.
That will be unallocated?
Yes.
So that will be available? Do you think, I mean, is this, and I know, would we roll over 3.2, 3.4 million, and you were concerned, moving through the year of how much additionals we should have out of there?
Right.
I mean, does this concern you? Should we?
Every time you approve an additional out of the general fund concerns me.
That's true. Vicki's a very nervous person.
I mean,
after what we've seen in prior years with the general fund, the council has done a really wonderful job bringing the general fund back on track. Like you said, Dan, $3+ million beginning balance. On paper, the general fund will be able to support this.
What do you mean on paper?
Well, the budget numbers that we put together, that we submit to the state, and the state reviews all these requests, they're based on projections. They're based on the numbers that we put together at budget time last year. I'm confident the state will be approving this, but I do want to caution against dipping into the general fund in additional appropriations to a large degree going forward. Because as you pointed out, Dan, we're going to get our tax draws. We're going to know what the revenue is going to be. But what happens if there are major refunds or appeals? What if the remainder of the year miscellaneous revenue doesn't come in as we intended? Right now, though, the general fund will be able to support this additional.
Any other comments or questions?
Well, I guess it just brings us back to, should we be paying this out of interest? I mean, one pot versus another, you aren't real confident, I don't think.
See, the
You
interest
don't have a
is-
crystal ball to tell us what our extra and miscellaneous revenue is going to be, and we don't know what's coming down the pike. We have over $1 million unallocated in interest.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is, it's $580,000 out of some of the carryover in one of those accounts, this extra money that we've talked about. So, pick an account.
What's the drawback of using the interest money?
I think, and that's a great question, Jeff, I think that at times we've talked about wanting to have a strong general fund carryover for insurance contingencies, oddities in our insurance claims. I suppose we could always run to the interest for that if the time came. But the problem is that if we let that general fund deplete too much, then we're going to be really up a creek.
Well, we won't be carrying that much over then into next year.
Right.
Why would we be up a creek? We could still use the interest money, correct?
Provided that we have it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Provided that we have a good earnings year, I suppose.
That's the only drawback I could see, is that if our earnings year if we were down during one of the years, we couldn't budget for it out of that money, and so we'd have to go back to the general fund again.
Yeah, and the reason I've solved the fact of the matter is that last year, when I met with the insurance consultants, they said, you got to have a $3 million reserve, for lack of a better term, in your general fund for insurance. So that kind of gave me this notion that we needed to protect $3 million in general fund. But as Andy has indicated, as long as we have hospital interest, we can go to it. But, it's really a question of what direction we want to do. Do we want to protect the general fund, or do we want to protect the interest fund?
Yeah, that might be a good question when we want to dig deeper from the general.
Protect the general.
Protect
the general.
Sheriff, can I ask you a question?
I agree with you.
On this pension, is there any room on that pension for negotiation on funds? Is it always a fixed fee? I mean, is there any different carrier?
We're getting some money from the sheriff's sales, right?
Paper service.
Paper sale, yeah. And that's regulated by legislation, and
Right.
they've changed that a couple of times. I think they changed it again.
Okay. So we can be pretty consistent in this fee year to year, probably.
But you kind of know what
Right.
Well,
It's an but it's an actuarial
Right.
equation.
Right.
So,
there's no, and I kind of budget as much as I can and guesstimate. Last year I came up into.
Well, that's kind of what we get from
$100,000.
Vicki, too, because we really never know until we actually get the money, so it's kind of
So-
the same scenario.
yeah, and that's, and along Jeff's questions, so I know we talked at one point about the vesting, and I know that the vesting has some impact on the actuarial analysis, but, so right now an officer vests at what, 10 years, 7 years? Because I was told two different things.
Currently, he's vested 8 years.
8 years. So if an officer stays here 8 years and leaves, then, so if the officer's new, and we just have to, as an actuarial, anticipate all of those things, and officers that leave after 8 years, and they're tapping the pension eventually, and all those sorts of stuff. Was there any thought, I know at one point the numbers probably weren't as great as we'd hoped, with changing the vesting of the officers, upping it? And we talked, and I don't mean that, by the way, from my perspective, as if it's take benefits away from officers. I look at it like, if we can free up any money from this pension contribution by upping the vesting and allocate that money to raises, it rewards officers that stay longer.
It's a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
To go from 8 to 10 years is only a few $1,000s.
Yeah, we actually looked at that in our...
An officer.
It was...
For an officer?
It was
Yeah.
minimal. As far as affecting this pension...
Still $100,000.
It was
less.
minimal. It wasn't that. It was like thousands. Couple $1,000s. It had no impact on it. But we did look at it. Now, I remember. We went back to Diltz. Diltz looked it over, said there's absolutely no... It's not going to impact the actuarial at all.
Okay.
So,
Any additional questions? If not, roll call.
What are we,
Yeah,
where are we
let's
taking?
hold up a
This
second.
is, as presented, it's coming out of the general fund.
Do we want to
Do we
revisit
want to
that?
protect it?
I personally would like the hospital interest money to protect the general fund, in my opinion.
That doesn't do anything. You guys come
Nope.
back next month and put it under interest, we'll vote for it.
Oh, to change for next month, I have not enough money to pay.
We gotta get it paid, don't we?
Oh, we can't make that motion tonight?
No, because an additional has to be advertised, so,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, it would have to be next month.
I don't want to slow things down.
We gotta get it paid, because I
Yeah.
remember there was...
Right.
Thank you for clarifying.
There was
That's
definitely
good.
some...
Vicki?
I just feel like I need to say this. Keep in mind the hospital interest fund, there's really no more money
Right.
coming into it.
We understand.
This is not the foundation, this
We
is the, okay, I just want to make that
Once
clear.
it's depleted, it's depleted forever.
So when do you have to pay this? When does that have to be paid by?
I pay it by the end of each month. I basically wait for the clerks to get their deposit in, and they get collections too.
And you don't have the 580 at this point? To pay?
For this, I don't have enough for this month yet. I have some of it, but not enough to make the payment.
How much of it do you have?
Right now, $540. I'm waiting for the clerk to
That's
go
good.
through. $540. Well, I know what I had.
Is that your personal account? 'Cause Sounds like my...
Oh, did you, so we'll have one more? Okay.
I'm with you.
I was gonna give it to...
Well, our portion that we collected, which now is changing because of something we looked at, and then I take the clerk's portion, and then I deduct that from the full payment.
She obviously needs the bread. Can we just,
$8.
I call it question, Mr. Chairman.
Let's just vote on it, right?
It's been questioned, and, I think obviously the future discussion from what fund and all that sort of thing might be even more appropriate at the next request, but it's obvious they have immediate needs that we should address. So with that, with the original motion, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay, Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen,
Yes.
Councilmember Witten,
Yes.
Councilmember Conover,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
and Councilmember Bozick.
Yes.
7-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
I make a motion on the 144, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion on the floor, it has a second for the sheriff's Form 144, presented on the agenda. Any discussion?
So what exactly are we doing here, Sheriff?
What I'm doing is I took a lieutenant out of my detective bureau and put him in charge of the drug unit, a couple months, and we are, just the things that have been happening in the last month, we've got a detective commander, we've got sergeants, we don't really have anybody now in rank in our detective bureau. So we're going to move a guy from Midnights, who's a lieutenant, back to the detective bureau. He's got investigative experience. He wants to come back. The detective commander wants him back, but then I don't have a lieutenant on Midnights. So we thought the best thing to do would be to make another captain, a person that is in charge of a division, which would be the drug unit, who's currently a lieutenant. And that way, we'll go through the promotional process of making another lieutenant, sergeant, corporal. And the way the budget is, we're actually taking a patrolman off, and the difference between the patrolman and the captain is, $7,100? And we are going to, that's for the year, and it won't be the year. It'll be $3,300, $3,584. And then we were going to pay for that. So you're voting on the the full amount, but we're not asking for really, even though it's an additional, we're going to assume that.
So I would amend my motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve the Form 144 under general fund, the additional, and the 144 out of county user fee fund.
That was also just so you had a ranking officer
Right.
in that unit.
The second concur?
Yes.
Yep.
And this all just stems from you taking over the
Right.
drug unit. How's that going?
It's going great.
So the funds that were used to pay for the head of the drug unit before, where are those funds now?
Good question. Do we know?
We're using them now, but we haven't been able to transfer them over. I'm just using it out of their accounts. They've been taken out, and I'm using that money to process all the payments for all the agencies that we have on the drug team. We have 4 agencies.
Because I think we allocated enough, didn't we, to pay the drug director?
I think he was actually, if I could, Chair, I think he was actually part of the prosecutor's,
Exactly.
under the prosecutor's budget. And so when the drug task force money was not covered, it didn't cover Bob Taylor's salary in that drug task force money.
He was listed as
As a
investigator.
Investigator under the
So
prosecutor's
he still
budget.
has an investigator.
So that was my
Task force
question.
money was completely separate.
Okay. So previously, the prosecutor used the money that was used for the investigator and used it to pay the director.
Right.
So
So it's in their budget.
is it your understanding that the prosecutor is going to keep an investigator then not? Has there been any overtures?
Maybe you
or-
should ask him. It's
Yeah.
my
I think I
understanding.
certainly will.
He's not.
Okay. All right, there's my motion.
Yeah, that was not in the drug money.
That money's still there then? Do we need to do a reduction?
That would be...
Have a discussion with the prosecutor.
That might be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Good sheriff's in trouble.
Mr. Chairman,
Any additional questions or comments on the Form 144? If not, roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Jessen,
Yes.
Councilmember Witten,
Yes.
Councilmember Conover,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
You can-
Councilmember Bozick,
Yes.
and Councilmember Rivas.
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on the firearms training fund transfer of 1426.
Second.
Motion on the floor, it has a second for Firearms Training Fund 142661. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries.
And, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on the 2 additionals under the inmate processing fund, $50,000 in motor vehicle and the other equipment.
Second.
Motion on the floor, that is a second for the Inmate Processing Fund, 2 separate additional requests. Any discussion?
You understand.
Is that just replacing a vehicle we already have?
Yes.
And that's the combined vote for both. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Witten,
Yes.
Councilmember Conover,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
and Councilmember Jessen.
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Adult Community Corrections?
I would like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, on the additional and the Form 144. It would appear that it is a grant, DOC grant.
Yes. There are a couple changes, though, that I did get today that were read, but need to be changed, just because the grant was just given to me today.
All right.
Oh, they did, okay.
That's my motion, yes.
Motion on the floor, that is a second from the Adult Community Corrections on the additional as well as the Form 144. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Conover,
Yes.
Councilmember Graham,
Yes.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Jessen,
Yes.
and Councilmember Witten.
Yes.
7-0.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good
Have a good
evening.
night.
Nice to meet you, Sheriff. Have a good evening.
Take care.
We all do.
Have a good night.
You, let us know where, Uncle Jim was tonight. Matter of fact, maybe you should start picking him up and bringing him to SWAT.
See you, John.
You know, like, turn on the siren?
Don't be picking on our big.
Hey, he's right here. No, this side of the table. That was that side.
No,
Portage Township Assessor.
Hello.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, I know this is a little unusual, but before we have a motion, I guess I'd like to ask a quick question of the Portage Township Assessor. And that is, I know that, Alta, you came in front of us back at budget time and asked to move a part-timer to a full-time position. And I believe that then Councilman Biggs asked you if you needed that person, and I think went on to say that did you think that person could get their responsibilities done? And I think you said 29 hours or less or something, I don't know. Biggs always kind of went off on crazy things.
Oh,
But
no.
and your answer was, you thought she could do that job in the part-time hours.
Right.
And I think the reason that you gave was that she's a pretty loyal employee and a good person, and you just
Right.
wanted to reward her by making her full-time. So I guess my quick question would be, because it's too late for that, right, is what's changed?
Well, I had a full-time person out of the general fund retire.
Okay?
So, of course, my reassessment person wanted full-time for benefits. I had two part-timers last year. They both wanted full-time with benefits. Well, I know that wasn't going to happen. So I had to let the one go and keep the one and try to get her full-time for the benefits. So now that the position open, she's moved up. I've had another person request, knowing that my part-timer moved up full-time, that a position would eventually be open for the reassessment.
Right.
But they are asking also if it's going to be full-time with benefits. So that is,
So if I'm understanding this, not to interrupt, but I suppose I am, so the person that you had asked to make full-time isn't the same person here. That person's been moved up to full-time because of a vacancy.
right.
So
Right.
you're wanting to fill a position, and you're having a hard time finding someone because of the part-time status?
Right.
Vicki, how's this reassessment fund look, if you don't mind me asking?
Now, I did talk to Vicki way before I even set up an appointment here.
That sounds
to make
great.
sure.
Vicki?
This is a property tax-driven fund, so the current balance in this fund is about $271,000. They're getting an infusion of property taxes once we do settlement. Keep in mind, this fund is shared between the Portage Township Assessor and the county assessor.
So what's the burn rate on that fund? What's coming out a month?
Okay, let's see, maybe, well,
How come our screens aren't picking up?
yeah, we need to...
Because sometimes it's better we don't know.
Hey, our screens are working over here. Shouldn't have moved.
You're on the cool end of the table, Bozak.
How about if we look at the fund, the general ledger? And then, well, okay, this is the total reassessment fund, and you can see monthly, it ranges.
So coming into that a year, we budgeted 528. Is that the anticipated revenue to come into that? So we bumping about $46,000 a month coming in?
Wait a minute.
Is that a good-
Not following.
Why aren't we doing this at budget time?
Well, I want to see this.
Exactly.
It's not going to happen.
I mean,
I might have a simpler question. In terms of number of employees that you had last year, how many did you have?
There's,
Count full-time as one and part-time as a half one.
okay, I have one part-time and four full-time included, and plus myself would be 5 full-time.
So 5 full-time and 1 part-time. And with this request, because I'm having a little bit of difficulty following who's going part-time, full-time, back and forth, will you still have the 4 and 1, or are we adding, what will that be?
No, I would no longer have the part-time. I would have full-time in the reassessment, so everybody there would be full-time.
So in effect, adding more man-hours to your department,
Mhm.
and more insurance as
So back to my question, Vicki, what's coming in, what's our anticipated bring into this fund?
For the year, we're looking at a total levy of about $360,000 that we're going to see for the entire year. So next month, we'll probably get posted to this fund about 250-ish.
All right, so let me ask you this question then. That brings up, it's running in a deficit then, right? I mean, we budgeted 500 and some thousand, right?
Total budget.
Yeah.
Yes,
and
for the 2 assessments.
With the 2 assessments, but our total revenue, our collection's going to be way south of that?
Well, they also get additional funds from excise and CVIT and FIT.
Okay, so-
They do get some miscellaneous revenue. This is not a large fund, by any means.
Here's my question, here's where I'm going with this. As we move, we've all seen this, as we move people into these non-general fund budgets,
Right.
sooner or later, they come home to roost.
Yes.
And so I'm asking, is this one that's going to come home to roost?
This position will have to be budgeted for next year. We will have to include the full year salary, the full year FICA, PERF, and insurance in this fund next year. Will next year's budget support this? We do not have those numbers yet for next year.
Also, my question is, will this person leave if they don't get full-time?
Well, no, my part-timer moved up to full-time.
She doesn't
Now
have the
I'm
person. She
short-staffed.
wants to make a
I'm
full-timer and
short-staffed
hire
right
somebody.
now, and reassessment has started.
Oh, and
So I'm having
you-
to fill a position. My problem is that everybody wants full-time with benefits. So if I spend my time and resources on a part-time person, they only stay a year, I've got to start all over.
So the
You know, I'm going to keep coming back, you
So,
know.
yeah, so the concern that I have, and I'm not going to speak for the council, but is, first of all, that historically, we don't like to do these kinds of things out of budget time.
Correct, I
I know,
understand.
but you did come at budget time requesting, so I get that. But the second part of it is, we don't want to load up in a non-general fund budget salaries that someday it may not support. So now that conjures up in my mind questions like, has there been such a change from September of last year to now to warrant, you just made a good point, I'm going into reassessment, I'm understaffed. Is that enough to warrant us making a decision on this now outside of budget time?
Well, right now, I've got 2 subdivisions that are taken off for building.
Right.
I've got Hidden Waters, and I've got Carno Crossing. So that, besides reassessment...
If you guys don't have a chance to get to my law office to reassess this year, I'm okay waiting a year.
But not only do they have to
Take 'em off
reassess,
the team.
they have to go out and do the new construction, which is occurring rapidly right now in those 2 subdivisions. Not only that, Form 11s will be going out soon, and I can guarantee that people are going to appeal this year. Assessed values are up.
How much of Alta's salaries do we have in the reassessment fund right now, Vicki?
The
Well,
levels.
let's call up the, well, she gets the per diem out of reassessment and the level 2 and level 3
Right.
bonus pay out of reassessment.
But
But there's,
all supplemental. A more fundamental question for me, if you would, please, because I think I have a handle on how it's, September you had 4.5 people, and you want to go to 5.
that's not county.
And the primary reason behind wanting to go to 5 is because you're having difficulty finding a part-timer,
Correct.
and that's more of a concern than the additional workload that you didn't anticipate last September.
Right, well, because if I can't find anybody that I need help, because I need help now, and if I can't get someone, then I don't know how we're going to meet the deadlines for the state. Because we have to assess 25% of parcels, total parcels, each year.
But you really need half a person.
Yeah,
How long have you been trying to fill that half spot?
about a month and a half.
And you're not getting applications?
I can't post it yet, so when I do, but word is getting out, I'm having people come in through our employees.
But then, so you're having interest in the position?
Correct, but everybody wants full.
But you don't have it posted?
Correct, but I have my employees trying to find people who want part-time.
Because if I remember budget time, we allowed you a higher per hour salary to offer.
Right.
Per person too, even at the higher end, you're...
No, that was at 26,000.
Been 3 years.
That one stayed.
Money per hour that you could pay
Oh,
somebody.
yeah.
Yeah, we did that last year.
Yeah, because I think I wanted it up to 32
Yeah.
at the time.
Yeah.
So, just trying to provide a livable wage and someone who will stick around.
Would it be beneficial for us to have, say, 2 part-timers versus 1 full-time individual? We post 2 positions because then we're not carrying over all the benefits that go along with that second full-time individual?
I would have.
We only need 1 part-timer, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Right, I only need 1.
Yeah, but if we're putting a full-time person on, that's really doing 2 part-time jobs, right?
Yeah, but I would have to look at my budget to see if I would have that money.
How much does she have? Does she have any money in her budget where we could
I'm just looking at the
I never
attrition
have
cost
any money.
besides the salary. It's not the salary as much as the health benefits and stuff that we.
17,000.
Yeah, additionally. So if you pay somebody $25,000 or $26,000, we add another $17,000 to that cost when we put them on as full-time employees.
I'm aware of that.
So, all right, well, that's, I mean, I don't want to see I don't want to see our Portage Township assessor end up in a tough spot getting a reassessment either.
Nope, that's bad.
That's bad.
Right.
So,
And we're scrolling through her reassessment budget right now, just to show you what's the balances in each of these line items.
I guess I'm just really confused because we said that you needed this full-time pay to have a full-time person because you couldn't hire a part-time person, but we're not trying to hire a part-time person.
Well, because everybody wants
Not
full-time.
Right, but it's not posted. So you're saying everybody, but nobody's had an opportunity to apply for
Correct.
the position.
Correct.
So to me,
But the people
it's
that I
just-
talked to, if I'm going to have that issue now before posting it, I'm going to have probably that issue, so I'm trying to avoid and save myself time and resources from training a person that will only stay maybe 6 months or a year because they need a job with benefits.
We put 6 months in a year, the budget will be up again, and then you can approach us at budget.
I was here last year.
Well, I wasn't.
Do you have a particular person you want to hire?
I have a person in mind that would be a hard worker and knows the system, so.
Jeremy, as a liaison, do you have any comments or anything you'd like to add?
No, this is a tough one. It's,
I thought I was the liaison.
You both are.
Why did he get called first?
Because he gets to
I'll speak up.
I wanted to technically ask.
I want my wallet. You can't vote on a budget session for a
It is a problem. I mean, it's.
It was an issue, last year, now it's
Right.
become an issue this
It's an
year. I'm
issue
going to
now.
be here every year asking until,
Because somebody was just retired, you asked last year.
I'll tell you, at budget time.
Excuse me, Madam, I have the floor. Can I finish my thought? I'm just messing around.
I've never seen
No,
you
go
do
ahead,
that.
I'm just teasing, go ahead.
No, that's all I said.
I didn't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just feel as if.
Wait a minute, is Sylvia the
Jeremy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, this is tough. Again, I think this stuff should be handled in budget session. I know she says, I was here last year budget session. We told her no. You indicated, I thought you said you lost somebody in part-time because they didn't get the full-time? Is that what you said? So you've already lost somebody.
because they wanted full-time, and I knew you would not agree to both of them being full-time. Out of the reassessment fund, I knew the money would be there because I had to share it with John. But now an opening came up because my full-time, retired,
Right.
and she moved up. Now, really, I'm short-staffed.
Do you think at this point you have the manpower and the staffing to get the reassessments done?
No.
So we know we have a
person.
At least she needs the part-time person, admit it.
But she can't fill it yet, because you're having a hard time finding, but you have somebody in mind,
Mhm.
but they're currently full-time,
Mhm.
and of course, they need to stay full-time.
Mhm.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
On the same page.
Okay,
And they know our software.
because they work for the county somewhere, I assume.
So, in my estimation, if the workload calls for 4.5 people, you don't hire a fifth, frankly.
That's my opinion.
Yes,
Jeremy,
but
what
my
else you got?
workload is increasing because due to new construction. They have to do double work when I'm going to
Yes,
new
Trump's
construction.
economy has, he's building right now. You're out reassessing new construction.
So we got Trump's
Right.
Oh, we won't get the benefit for a couple of years yet.
So you just admit we are.
Interest money's killing us.
Let's make this interesting. I'm going to make a motion to approve all this.
Oh, man.
Let's just take it to a vote. Says she can't get her assessments done.
Relax, there's no emotion.
Let's call for the vote. Are you going to second this, Regis, to take it to a vote?
Oh, man, I'll second it for further discussion.
All right.
Motion on the floor has a second to approve the Portage Township Assessor's request. Any additional discussion?
I'm not holding out hope for this also. I'm with you, but I think...
I'd like Vicki to kind of give us some insight on what we've got going on here as far as wages, just so we can kind of figure that out.
Have you spoken, okay, I know the question, I know the answer. You haven't spoken to John about this?
Yes, I have.
You have?
Yes, before I even came here, I talked to Vicki and John to make sure the money would be available.
What did John say? Because this is a shared fund now.
Yes, he was fine with it.
He gave you the blessing?
Yes, and then Vicki said there would be enough money to support this at the time.
Through the end of this year.
The issue is, will the state approve this additional appropriation? And I'm confident that there's enough cushion in the reassessment funds to support it for this year. I cannot give any promises on next year. This is something we will look at the budget time. We don't know what the growth quotient is. We don't know what Alpha may be proposing elsewhere in our budget, what John might be proposing elsewhere in the budget. But in terms of this additional appropriation, I'm confident it will be approved because there's what we see in the cushion here.
So is the county assessor, and I don't know if you guys talked about this, but understanding that if this fund does he have money in his general fund that he's willing to give up, or do you, in your general fund, that you have available to give up to fund this in the future?
I would have some, not much, but I don't know about him.
Okay.
I think Gene handled it.
So that didn't come up with that, okay.
So I see where you're going. You think we should cut the county assessors to make room for this in the general fund, so, yeah, I like where you're going with that.
Again, for me, it's a fundamental question where if it's the workload of 4.5 people, to make it go to 5, to add that half a year salary for that half-time to part-time, part-time to full-time salary, plus add another person to the insurance rolls without justification of the workload, or so it seems like it wouldn't be the right.
But I think she's telling you the workload.
Yes, maybe
a little clarification on that would
Yeah.
be good, because what I've heard, I haven't heard that the workload warrants 5, it was 4.5, other than the two new subdivisions. So if you could expound upon that a little bit, that'd be good.
Well,
How many homes?
A lot. I'm handling sales almost daily. I do the sales disclosures, I put them in on both. The sales are going up, vacant land is being sold.
Where you going, Jeff?
Whoa.
We also have commercial, I think we have a building going up on 20, it's supposed to be a hotel, and I know Hooters is supposed to be coming.
Hooters? Horns getting Hooters, you heard it.
Oh, that was only a matter of time.
It seems as if maybe with additional information, we might be better prepared to address the additional workload. But from my estimation, I don't think we have that, or from my perspective, we don't have that.
So if we
Can we talk?
if we say no, and you go out and find a part-time person, do you think you're going to get this reassessment done on time?
Well, I should, as long as they work every day. I don't know, if that's another issue. At part-time, it's a flex schedule, so they can work when they want to, and they don't have to work. It doesn't mean that they're going to work the full 29 hours. The flex
Well, if that's
schedule.
what you set in your parameters, I'm looking for to pay you
Right,
X,
I know
and I need you Monday through Thursday, or you get off at 2 on Thursday, or however you
Right.
work those
No,
29
I would
hours.
set that, but to guarantee that they would show up.
Well, then they don't have a job. I
Yeah.
mean,
Then I have to go through the process again.
How much does the part-time make an hour?
What's the hour?
Up to 20.
Up to $20 an hour.
Yeah, you had,
Well, that was,
Geez, I'm out of work, I think I'll take that job.
where's the 144, here.
Justin's looking for a job.
There you go. And I would work.
This guy's a friend.
Are there any additional comments at this point?
This is a tough decision. I mean, you
Terrible.
got to sell us a little better. We laid it out there for you. You're saying that if your employee shows up, you'll get it done with a part-time person. If he or she doesn't show up, that wasn't really the answer I was looking for.
Right now, I'm taking 2 full-time people are going out now, so it leaves us very short-staffed in the office. And we are right in the middle of a deadline with personal property, so we're trying to get that done. So I'm kind of in a crunch right now to get somebody.
When you first took this office over, how many employees did you have in that office?
There were 7 or 8 of us. I've cut my budget significantly since I've taken over, so.
So when you took office, you had 7 or 8 full-time, or part-time, you had 5 full-time, 3 part-time?
Everybody was full-time. I didn't have any
You had
part-time.
8 full-time when you took this
About
office?
7 full-time.
7 full-time when you took this office?
Yeah, so I eliminated a position, I gave money back. We hired, had to hire for part-time reassessment. And we already had some money in mind for the previous reassessment.
So you started with 7, you're down to, and that included the assessor?
Yeah.
So you're down to 5 and 1?
5.
That includes you?
Mhm.
5 full-time and 1 part-time. So you're down, 2.5? Did I do that right? 1.5?
What school did you go to?
Don't say Portage.
So you have...
Let's start digging on Portage. Larson's wife went to Portage.
Yeah, she did.
That's why I said that, big on Portage.
Any additional comments at this point?
Great school.
Motion and the second was for the request, under all the requests under the Portage Township Assessor, is that right?
Sure.
Yeah, roll call, please.
Okay, Councilmember Graham?
Did she vote?
Didn't want to go first.
I'm sorry, that's the order.
No, it isn't that.
Did you vote?
No, I didn't vote.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm thinking about it.
I heard, I didn't know what that was, yes or no?
I'm going to say no. I'm sorry, Alfred.
Yeah.
It ain't looking good, Alton. It ain't looking good.
Councilmember Larson?
No.
Councilmember Bozick?
No.
Councilmember Rivas?
I'm going to say yes because I know where you started.
Because it doesn't matter.
Because I know where you started.
You know,
I know where you started. She has, in a small department, we've talked about this, she has, in a small department, she has cut. She has given back to the general fund over the years in a small department.
Can I interject something? Can we,
Yes,
can you hire this
that's my vote.
individual part-time, and can we revisit this again to see if we've met the standards? Is there a possibility you could hire that individual with the thought process?
Proceed with the vote. at this
Well,
point.
yeah, and I think, but on that line, Jeff, if this vote fails, maybe what you should do is post that position, go hard charge, and then try to fill it part-time, and if you can't, come back.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
There you go.
Yep,
I mean, I don't know what to say,
Okay.
yeah, so,
I agree.
I mean, maybe
Mine,
the-
I get 2 months to finish.
maybe.
It's a roll call, and maybe Karen, you can have your time.
Maybe Karen and Mike will vote yes, I don't know, maybe you're gonna get it.
Karen, grab that gavel.
Vicki, roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Jessen?
No.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
And Councilmember Conover?
No.
Okay, so 5 to 2 noes. 5 noes and 2 yeses.
So also, please, try to post it, try
Really?
hard,
Well.
see if you can get somebody, if not, you're just gonna come back,
Yeah,
tell us
this-
behind my...
I wouldn't take this vote as condemnation on what you can do there. We
So I'm
just,
on a deadline.
I know, we understand that, but we also have to be pretty fiscally responsible.
I understand that, and I've been very physically responsible
You have,
myself.
you've done a great job. We're
But
not,
right now, I need help.
yeah.
And my suggestion too, Alta, would be just to, if you could come with more information justifying the additional half a position, just explaining or further explaining what you've said tonight, that'd be helpful. Okay, second reading, please.
Before we get to that, Jeremy, maybe sometime next week, you and I can go in and sit down with Alta and take a look at her department and see what's going on.
I think we need to follow up where she's at, because this can't get behind. I mean,
No, I can't.
if we have to have an emergency meeting and do something, then we've got to. So, also, we're talking about you still.
So Jeremy and I are gonna come see you this next week, we're the liaisons, so we're gonna sit down with you, we're gonna look at what you got, we're gonna see what's really happening there, and
So are you going to post this position immediately? You waited because you were seeing if you could get it full-time and post it as full-time, so now you're going to post it part-time. Right. Right.
all right.
So post it, you're going to post it in the morning time, and then me and Dan will follow up towards the latter part of next week and see where things are at with you.
Thanks, Alton.
Thank you, Alton. You do a great job, you really do.
Oh, yeah, Sylvia?
I'm sorry, but I just couldn't. Come back at budget time. Next it's
Okay, second, guy who loves trucks. Second reading, please.
He does love trucks.
Okay, whereas it has been determined that it is not necessary to appropriate more money than was appropriated in the annual budget, therefore be it ordained, resolved by the Porter County Council of Porter County, Indiana, that for the expenses of the taxing unit, the following additional sums of money are hereby approved. Okay, general fund, a total of $583,461. Cumulative bridge, $300,000. Major moves, $317,197. County user fee, $4,484. Hospital proceeds, $517,000. Inmate processing fund, $57,503.54. And adult community corrections fund, $213,500. And that concludes second reading.
I make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion on the floor, second, for the second reading, roll call, please.
Councilmember Larson?
Yes.
Councilmember Bozick?
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Justin?
Yes.
Councilmember Witten?
Yes.
Councilmember Conover?
Yes.
And Councilmember Graham?
Yes.
7-0.
Attorney's report, Harold.
I have nothing to report. Thanks.
Money well spent.
Yes, that's right.
Any other matter? I have the Caring Place presentation. But they didn't stick around. Any other matter that may properly come before the council?
What if I have somebody I want to bring improperly?
That's right up your alley.
That's pretty much the rest of the meeting?
What do you got?
I have nothing, actually.
All right. Anything else? Can I motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, meeting adjourned.